Shirley brought me to Hollywood to do Gambit, but her thing she was doing overran, and I was a week on my own in Hollywood, and I'd never been to America.
What if I told you that one of Hollywood's most beloved gentlemen, a man who has never uttered a single harsh word in public, has spent decades carrying secrets that could destroy careers? What if I told you that behind Michael Caine's warm smile and charming Cockney accent lies a memory filled with moments so infuriating, so disrespectful, that even his legendary patience has its breaking point? This is the story of Michael Caine's silent war, fought not with fists or shouting matches, but with something far more devastating: the power of remembering exactly who betrayed his trust. And today we're about to uncover the 6 actors who pushed this cinematic legend so far that their names became permanently etched in his memory, not as colleagues, but as cautionary tales. Picture this. It's a film set in the early 1980s. The cameras are rolling, the crew is focused, and there's that magical rhythm that happens when everyone is working together towards something beautiful. Then suddenly that rhythm shatters, not because of a technical problem or a creative disagreement, but because someone in that sacred space decided their ego was more important than the art everyone came there to create. For Michael Caine, a man who has spent over 6 decades mastering the craft of collaboration, these moments weren't just inconveniences. They were betrayals of everything he held sacred about filmmaking. And the first name on his list might shock you: Sylvester Stallone. Fresh off the massive success of Rocky, Stallone walked onto the set of Victory like he owned the place. And in his mind, he did. What was supposed to be an ensemble war film about Allied prisoners planning both a football match and a daring escape suddenly became the Stallone Show. Caine watched in quiet horror as script pages were rewritten daily to favor Stallone's character, as scenes that were meant to showcase the entire team were twisted to make the American goalkeeper the central hero. But here's what really cut Caine to the core. It wasn't Stallone's demands for more screen time or his insistence on doing dangerous stunts to look invincible. It was the complete destruction of the collaborative rhythm that Caine believed was sacred. For Caine, acting was about the exchange, about listening as much as speaking. With Stallone, there was no exchange. There was only Stallone talking and everyone else waiting for their turn to react to his greatness. Caine never raised his voice, never staged a rebellion, but his patience thinned with every day. He watched a potentially great film about teamwork become a showcase for one man's ego, and the professional in him was disgusted. Years later, when asked about Victory, Caine would praise the concept, the camaraderie with other actors, even the thrill of working with football legend Pelé. But when Stallone's name came up, his tone would sharpen into something colder than winter. As one crew member remembered, Caine once muttered under his breath, "Some actors think cinema belongs to them. It never does." That single sentence contained decades of wisdom and a warning that Stallone apparently never heard. But if Stallone represented the dangers of unchecked ego, then the next name on Caine's list represented something even more complex and painful. Laurence Olivier. How do you hate a legend? How do you resent a man who is considered the greatest actor of his generation? For Michael Caine, working with Olivier on Sleuth was like being trapped in a beautiful prison, surrounded by genius but suffocated by the need for absolute submission. The film was designed as an intellectual duel between 2 men, one young and hungry, the other experienced and cunning. The dynamic perfectly mirrored reality. Olivier was the knighted titan of British theater, while Caine was still the scrappy newcomer who had clawed his way up from working-class roots. The script gave them equal footing, but the set tilted so heavily toward Olivier's dominance that Caine felt like he was drowning. What made it worse was that Olivier's control wasn't born from insecurity or stupidity like Stallone's. It came from genuine mastery, which made it impossible to fight and impossible to ignore. Olivier would demand extra takes, not to perfect the scene, but to prove his superiority. He would manipulate every pause, control every movement, leaving absolutely no space for Caine to breathe or contribute. The chemistry between them on screen was electric, earning the film Academy Award nominations. But that electricity came from real tension, real frustration, real pain. Caine was performing opposite a master while being treated like an apprentice, and the contradiction was eating him alive. He later admitted that working with Olivier was both inspiring and unbearable, a lesson in how brilliance can be both a gift and a weapon. Years later, always careful not to disrespect a national treasure, Caine would soften his criticism with diplomacy. But the truth would always slip through. Laurence was a giant, he once said, but giants cast long shadows. It was admiration laced with warning, the recognition that sometimes genius demands more than it gives back. But if Olivier represented the suffocating weight of greatness, then the third name on Caine's list represented something far more chaotic and destructive: Steven Seagal. By the 1990s, Michael Caine thought he had seen every kind of difficult actor. Then he encountered Steven Seagal on the set of On Deadly Ground and realized he had been naive about how bad things could actually get. This wasn't just ego or artistic differences. This was complete professional meltdown, a reminder of what happens when fame completely erases respect for the craft. Seagal didn't just star in the film, he also directed it, creating a power imbalance that left co-stars like Caine completely stranded. Scripts were rewritten on the fly, scenes stretched into indulgent showcases of Seagal's martial arts skills, and schedules bent to accommodate his every whim. For Caine, who had built his career on the foundation of professionalism and preparation, it felt like being trapped in a circus without a ringmaster. What stung most was Seagal's complete disregard for collaboration. He would cut off co-stars mid-scene, rewrite dialogue to favor himself, and refuse to rehearse. For Caine, whose entire approach to acting relied on preparation and mutual respect, this felt like sabotage. He was watching the art he loved being stripped down to empty spectacle, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. After filming Wrapped, Caine rarely spoke about the experience directly, but those close to him remembered his bluntness in private moments. "It wasn't a film," he once said. "It was a circus without a ringmaster." That single line captured everything he carried away from that nightmare production. But the fourth name on Caine's list proved that gender made no difference when it came to toxic behavior on set. Shelley Winters arrived on the set of Alfie with undeniable talent and impossible volatility. This was the film that would establish Caine as a leading man, but its production became a masterclass in managing chaos. Winters had a gift for disrupting the delicate balance that Caine needed to do his best work. One day she would be radiant and generous, making everyone around her feel special. The next day she would lash out at crew members or dismiss her co-stars like they were beneath her notice. For a young actor like Caine, still establishing his place in the industry, her unpredictability was both intimidating and infuriating. What made it worse was that her talent was real. She could deliver moments of genuine brilliance that reminded everyone why she had won Academy Awards. But those moments came at the cost of everyone else's comfort and confidence. Caine later reflected that talent without control was like fire without a hearth, burning everything it touched. He learned to work around her moods, to anticipate her outbursts, to protect his own performance while accommodating her chaos. But the experience left him with a deep understanding of how quickly brilliance could become a weapon when it wasn't tempered with respect for others. Yet even Shelley Winters couldn't prepare Caine for the next name on his list, a man whose legend preceded him like a storm warning: Marlon Brando. For Michael Caine, working with Brando was both a dream and a nightmare, often within the same scene. Brando's presence was magnetic, his talent undeniable, but his complete disregard for discipline made every moment unpredictable and exhausting. Brando would arrive late, dismiss scripts, and improvise entire passages without warning. What audiences saw as spontaneous genius, Caine experienced as professional sabotage. He was trying to build performances on preparation and timing, while Brando was tearing down the foundation with every improvised moment. The contradiction was maddening. Caine could see flashes of brilliance that reminded him why Brando was considered one of the greatest actors who ever lived. But those flashes came at the cost of everyone else's rhythm and confidence. It was like trying to dance with a partner who kept changing the music without telling you. Despite his frustration, Caine never denied Brando's talent. He once admitted that Brando could give you the greatest moment you'd ever see on film, but he would sacrifice 5 other moments to get there. For Caine, who believed in the sacred trust of ensemble work, that trade-off was unacceptable. But the final name on Michael Caine's list represents perhaps the most painful kind of professional betrayal: Val Kilmer. Sometimes the absence of respect hurts more than active hostility, and that's exactly what Caine experienced when dealing with Kilmer. While Caine never worked directly with Kilmer on Batman Forever, their paths crossed enough for him to witness something that struck him as worse than ego or chaos: complete emotional absence. Kilmer had a reputation for mood swings, for clashing with directors, for withdrawing into silence when collaboration was most needed. When Caine encountered him in person, the distance was immediate and palpable. There was no warmth, no professional courtesy, no acknowledgement that they were both craftsmen working in the same tradition. For Caine, who saw filmmaking as fundamentally about human connection, Kilmer's coldness felt like a betrayal of everything the profession represented. You can forgive temper, you can work around ego, but you cannot build anything meaningful with someone who refuses to be present. In Caine's view, Kilmer represented the dangers of unchecked stardom, talent that had been poisoned by isolation. The refusal to engage with the collective rhythm wasn't just unprofessional, it was inhuman. So what does this all mean? Michael Caine's story isn't about holding grudges or settling scores. It's about something much more important: the recognition that great art requires great discipline, that collaboration is sacred, and that ego can destroy even the most talented group of people. Each of these encounters taught Caine something essential about protecting his craft and choosing his battles. He learned that some people will always put their individual needs above the collective good, and that the only way to survive in such an environment is to remember exactly who can be trusted and who cannot. Today, at 91 years old, Michael Caine remains one of the most respected actors in the world, not because he avoided difficult people, but because he learned how to work with them without letting them destroy his love for the craft. His legacy isn't just in the incredible performances he gave, but in the professional standard he maintained even when surrounded by chaos. The next time you watch Michael Caine on screen, remember that his calm presence and effortless professionalism were forged in the fires of some of Hollywood's most challenging personalities. Behind that gentle smile is a man who has seen the worst of human behavior and chose to respond with dignity, discipline, and an unwavering commitment to the art form he loves.